Pounders, welcome back. The NFL draft is officially over. I hope everyone got the landing spots that they wanted. I know that's not true. It was tough for some of these rookie running backs. The landing spots were bad. they were they were bad. There's a few good ones, but mostly and we'll dive into it. Mostly was tough. However, the wide receivers, and especially for our top exposed wide receivers, the players we were on early from the beginning of the big board, very, very good. Even Taj Washington, anyone see that getting some love in Miami at the end? He's someone that wasn't really mixed in all that much, but we ended up with not even that much. We ended up with 2.7%. He wasn't clicked very often. But him and Malik Washington, both in Miami, going to fight for some playing time, it looks like, as the wide receiver 3 in Miami. But what a great landing spot for both of these guys to establish themselves in a offense that, definitely needs a number 3. These guys might be a little more exciting for dynasty when Tyreek Hill moves on, but you have to think that they should be trying to get them involved. Uh, Welcome. YouTube member, Mike C. Thank you for subscribing to the Patreon today. Dakota, thank you for subscribing to the Patreon. CSV ranks are on the way. Those will be up by Monday. Going to be sent out. Going to review them with Nick and F42. Make sure they're locked tight. We're targeting closing line value again in every single player situation we're looking at, and we're trying to find where the value is. And then any subscription to Patreon gets you the CSV rankings as well as the draft guide update. And they have different goals, right? The CSV rankings are going to tell you where I feel the market is heading on a player, where I feel that they're valued, right? And then you can scoop the value in between, or you can fade that player till they get to that range. The draft guide is completely separate, but you're getting it in the package. It's going to be based on the current ADP on these players. So they're underdog ranks, right? And when it comes out, I rank them based on a color system, good value, fair value, bad value. We'll bring up an example here and a fun round to look at. I mean, this is pretty good. So this is at 84% fill rate. This is the draft guide based on the ADPs at 84% fill rate of the big board. Um, We get lucky here doing a soft fade on Keenan Allen with the Odunze. We do see a big drop in Keenan Allen. I finished the top 100 today. Uh, James Cook, Rashad White, these RBs took small L's today, not major L's, small L's. And then Pacheco, I think, was the major winner of these middle round running backs. God damn. RIP to Wright. Big time, dude. Big time. And we were on him very, very early before the draft. We expected him to crush the draft. Doesn't matter. It looks like he's going to be in that by the end of the season. What do you think? Like 5 to 6 touches range? It's not going to be much higher than that. DQ must have smashed on Keon Coleman. I'm lucky that in rookies and sophomores, I was a little more of a ADP drafter. Not all the way, but with some of those rookies with AD and Keon, I was mixing them in. Whereas in the big board, had a small fade on Keon, and we were really targeting the Lab McConkey, the Worthy, the Ricky Pearsall, the Burton, as you could see with our exposure. So I'm not very mad about it. Burton, I can you ask for a better spot than Cincy? Can you ask for a better spot to establish himself at the wide receiver 3 in Cincy? I don't think so. Waddle, we were just high on from the beginning, and we saw him rise uh, over a round from the opening of I almost said BBM, of the big board. Darnell Mooney, this is all early exposure. Roman Wilson going to try to establish himself as the wide receiver 2 in Pittsburgh. Not only that, I don't know if anyone's talking about it, but very early on, if the contest had already dropped, I would already have 70% Pat Fry. Major winner. A major winner from the NFL draft, in my opinion. Major winner. Malik Washington, we saw went to Miami. Ricky Pearsall sneaks into the first round on the YouTube Thummy for the draft party. Insane. That did not expect it, but he sneaks into the first. I was thinking he might end up in Miami in the second round, but again, like this is pre working out with Waddle and Hill. I just thought he would fit really well there. San Fran's good landing spot for him. Lad McConkey, Adam, thank you. Thank you. We were luckily Adam part of the pound got us all on Lad very early, and after watching his tape, was very impressed. Now he has to stay healthy and prove it, but man, does he have a great opportunity with the Chargers. McMillan to Tampa Bay. They don't have any ties really to Trey Palmer. He was serviceable as a third receiver, but he's a 6th round pick. He's a 6th round pick. So they're going to battle for snaps. And then Curtis Samuel is all early exposure to Curtis Samuel. Very happy with the receivers. The way we drafted our teams too. If we just pull up any random draft, we have 1, 2, 3 of these players in each draft. Let's just scroll the F down. Yeah. So here we see Ricky Pearsall, Polk, and McMillan with Ingram, Sanders, and Janu Jaceki. Winners today. I want to say they're both draft day winners. The Jalen Wright is RIP. This is early Roshan days. James Conner gets some of his pedazzle taken away with Trey Benson landing in Arizona. So what? Like he falls back to the Tony Pollard range, who's also sharing the backfields. Like, yeah, it's not great. Steph, welcome to the live stream. Everyone, thank you for coming out. If you're just joining us, go down, slap the like on the live stream. Hit the sub if you guys are new to the channel and you're enjoying the content, probably the most important part. Devin, welcome. Zamir Workhorse, major winner today. Major winner today. Major winner today. Steph, was Vegas going to take Audric Estime if Denver didn't? Because Estime went 1 pick ahead of Vegas. I really thought that Vegas was going to target a running back, so we're going to readjust on Zamir. You have to. Zeke to Dallas. I think so. I think it's very likely. I think it's very likely. Vidal. Frank. Dude, Mr. Vidal here. He's got 24+% of Vidal. Crushed it, man. Crushed it. I didn't really believe. I'm not convinced that Elijah Mitchell, someone that some games they would give him 0 carries, not convinced he's the number 2. So Vidal does have an opportunity to become the number 2 in that backfield. Definitely. Definitely. Estimated Dallas would have been a great spot too. Dallas was just like, we're good on offense. Like Brandon Cooks, major winner. Ferguson, major winner. Wait till you see where we have them ranked in the CSV as well as the draft guide. Bindles, let's go for the people. Gifts 5. Gifts 5. Steph gets it. ER7 gets it. Wounded Geese, You Dead My Son, and Seth Wabi, a lot of longtime listeners getting gifted with the sub, blessing them. Oh my God. I just realized what I did. Yo, that's crazy. That's crazy. My bad. Blessing them. That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you. I have to put this over here so that doesn't happen. That's crazy. Let's go. Let's go, guys. Oh my God. All right. I know we covered the first round. I can't get over. Did we see that correct? I just want to make sure. Oh no, the pick's still there. Okay. No, they did it. It was not a dream. It was not. They did the Michael Penix thing. Okay. What do we think of Burton? Where'd you want him to go? That's kind of. He was the last round pick for how long? 19th round, 18th round. I'm not gonna complain about Cincy. It's hard to complain about Cincy. It is. So, a team that needs a wide receiver 3, God, I love the spot, especially for his price. Now, we'll see where he moves to, and that's the important thing. I operate in the world of closing line value, right? I operate in the world of beating the field. That's what I care about most. As many times as I can, getting ahead of ADP. And, man, I think we did a great job of that so far on the big board. ER7 with the $20 dono. My man, I appreciate you. Says, thank you. Drop a like, people love. Here's something for your first BBM. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you just coming out and slapping the like. You know that. Caleb Jaden. Other than that, Brock Bowers. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt Mayer. It's going to hurt Myers. Myers the most, in my opinion. But it's not gonna kill those teams that have Myers. I don't know too many people that were like, "Oh, yeah, I'm so confident in Myers that he's gonna be in my 2 tight end builds with just, with the 20 round drafts especially." I think that's the big thing. And when you have the 20 round drafts, it's so easy to add a 3rd tight end at on the end, and you know you're gonna get someone that's at least seeing the field. Um Yeah, some of these elite tight ends got some major wins though. Like I thought Hunter Henry, he got a major win because the Pats end up like drafting Bell super late. Like these guys get a little bit more certainty based on which round they're selecting some of these players. Worthy, welcome to the Marquise Brown range, let's say. Alpha, I appreciate you, man. Welcome to the YouTube membership. I appreciate you, dude. Guy in Ricky Pearsall was surprising in the best way possible. Team that needs a 3rd wide receiver, they have Juwan, but they need a 3rd wide receiver, and, it's a team that could run into injuries with Debo, with his hammy. They were still looking to trade at the time of the Ricky Pearsall selection. That is sort of my theory, is that when they selected Ricky, they were still looking to either move Debo or Ayuk, and when that doesn't happen, he's still he's still a good selection, right? Even if they didn't wanna trade Ayuk because maybe they're not gonna renew him, next season. Xavier Legette, yeah, um, this one's tricky, and it's gonna depend on where he's being drafted. I will say that. When we get to the ranking of him, I'll be curious to see where we have him ranked because I did around the top 100, 110. So we didn't get to Xavier Legette yet. Gets a good landing spot, good opportunity. Obviously, Mingo didn't look like the guy. It's really tough to tell though. In Carolina, with he had no time to throw. Bryce had no time to throw. So hopefully this team looks a little different heading into year 2. But Legette, ceiling play. Um, can't say the same for some of these guys, but yeah, Legette, he was a lot more sexy when we thought he was 6'3". I'll say that. When when he took the quarters out of his socks and all of a sudden he was 6'1", with that size, the weight and the speed, 6'3" felt better. 6'3" felt better. Keon Coleman to Buffalo, he's gonna be very closely ranked to Ladd, in my opinion, and I'd be curious to see what you guys think of would you go Ladd over Keon Coleman, right? Because it's basically a battle of better offense, more throwing attempts in Buffalo. Also, there's more competition for targets because you have Kincaid, you have Curtis Samuel, like whatever. You have Shakir, who they believe in, and Knox, the 4 games he'll play. Then you have Keon Coleman, obviously high-powered offense. Then you have the Chargers, and you have Ladd, who can establish himself as the wide receiver 1, who's a masterclass route runner, dealt with some injuries, but the opportunity is there to become the wide receiver 1. Palmer, what crazy value Palmer was all offseason. If I was doing cash games, like nothing but cash games, Palmer would have been my guy. Palmer would have been my guy in every single draft that I made a point to draft. Where do you have Worthy, Ladd? So Worthy, he's going to the Marquise Brown range. Ladd and Coleman are gonna be very close, and they're in the 80s. They're in the 80s. Polk, I haven't got to yet. Polk felt safe. Like, the Pats trade back, right? And I wanted Ladd, but does Ladd really fit their current wide receiver landscape, what they're trying to do? That also plays a part. It's important. Polk can play multiple positions. He's not like a true X, but then they bring in Javon Baker. So I'm actually really good with what the Pats did with their wide receiver picks with that pairing. I would have bought a Ladd jersey yesterday, though, if we selected Ladd. The Chargers get Ladd. He has a great opportunity. Obviously, Quentin Johnston just troubles catching the ball. Might lose some of the trust from Herbert, and then Ladd's like the squeaky shiny new toy. So obviously, he's going to be a fun click. It's a team that still wants to run the ball. We see that the way they drafted too. But then we had a run on defense and offensive linemen. AD to Indy is very interesting. Honestly, I think this is better for A Rich than anyone else. Um, it's better for A Rich. He's going to fall for this landing spot, in my opinion. The good thing I will say with Indy right now is if A Rich gets hurt this season, you have Joe Flacco. You have someone very capable of throwing the ball. So there is a little more certainty with the backup in a situation where the quarterback has a higher potential of getting hurt in A Rich that is a rushing QB. So AD, he's still gonna fall. It hurts Josh Downs a little bit, but Pittman, I don't think it really does anything negative for Pittman beyond a few picks, but at that point, it's negligible. He still goes in the same range, and I think that's what's important because you should be operating in ranges, right? Does this player fit in this range? And then you're going based on correlation, right? So correlation is going to make the deciding factor as long as you're not reaching different ranges, in my opinion. And sometimes it's okay to still do that. Corley gets a good landing spot. Corley gets a good landing spot, but it's hard to forget, at least for me. I'm very sticky. It's hard to forget Aaron Rodgers not liking rookies. It's like, I know we want to celebrate this one, and it's good for where his ADP was because he's likely to rise from that 180, 89 ADP. He will rise, and I'm glad I have over 8%. Rodgers doesn't always trust the rookies, though. So I will be mixing in Corley. I think the landing spot's great. You have Mike Williams, who plays 4 games, out for 4 games, coming back from an ACL tear. It's it's a good spot. It's a good landing spot. These rookie wide receivers, man, they crushed it. Trey Benson, great backup for Arizona. I still do believe he is the backup to James Conner, but is there room for both of these guys to be successful in this offense based on where they're gonna be drafted? I think so because James Conner's gonna fall, and he's gonna fall further than where I would probably not draft him. So, like, I'm gonna be taking him probably at his new price, is an easier way to break that one down. And Trey Benson, it'll be interesting to see where the field ranks him initially, but it's probably in the same range. Right? Like, he was already going maybe he was going a little ahead by the end of the big board. He's going a little ahead of those running backs like Chuba. He was going, like, right in that range of Chuba. And I know he was being reached on sometimes in the 90s, in the low 100s. So I think he does fall back to that 110 range, that handcuff sorta range by Jaylen Warren. I think that's kind of warranted. Offensive tackle, Pats of dude, the Pats' first 5 picks were QB, wide receiver, O-line, O-line, like, not in that order, but I'm happy. I'm happy. Positions of need. That's all you're asking for. And Steph's in the live chat. I wish I had her live tonight just to discuss what happened in Dallas. Like, we're talking about positions of need. Like, yo, we're just good. We're good with Brandon Cooks as a wide receiver too. He did establish himself, guys. He did establish himself on the back end of the season. That second half of the season, he established himself. Now that they didn't add anyone though, I'm definitely gonna be clicking more Brandon Cooks. Uh, Fergie Ferg, he moves up because of the draft today. Just, I mean, what more can you ask for when a team doesn't add to the wide receiver room? Like, I think they I think they fit well, maybe not from a fantasy football perspective. Javon Baker over Polk, in my opinion, for fantasy, like late round pick. These guys are both going to be in that 18th round area. The Patriots are gonna be very easy to double tap at the end. It's gonna be one of those teams that if you wanna make a bet that they show a little life and they outperform their ADP, that's gonna be the Patriots this year. I think Drake May, if he starts in the 150s, I'm going to avoid it because you're going to get the Brissett news in training camp. You're going to get the Brissett start in preseason. Like, you're going to get that news. I think Brissett's the starter, in my opinion, until we can see that the O line can do their job to some extent. They're not throwing a new rookie into the fire. Now, it goes both ways, and I have trouble. Like, I could see Drake May not starting until week 4. I could also see him not starting until, like, week 8, depending on how the team is doing and how the O-line looks, how the weapons look, how they're being developed. You The worst thing you can do is bring in a rookie QB and absolutely crush their career by losing the first 6 games of the year. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Drake May. I do think you're gonna get a fall as we get deeper into, the offseason. I think you're also gonna get just drafters that will want to fade him, so I do think he will fall in some draft rooms, and that's when I'll be selecting him most likely. Jermaine Burton, dude, pick 80. Jermaine Burton, it's a nice little stand. Blake Corum, now Blake Corum's like a little more athletic Kyron Williams. Kyron Williams proved himself last year that he can handle a big workload and be successful in yards per carry. Uh, got there with what, 12 rushing touchdowns? Like, he was great. They bring in Corum who can do a lot of the same things though. So I think they can incorporate like a change of pace back. Maybe it becomes like 70-30, and they give Kyron some rest. Maybe Kyron doesn't have that crazy, crazy weekly ceiling that he had because of the volume alone, and, maybe Corum, I think he's going to eat into that. That being said, Corum rises a little bit, nothing crazy because he was in, like, what, the 130, 140 range. He's gonna go into that handcuff, change of pace running back range where the 0 RB salivate. Kyron, he drops. I think I have him behind Olave now. So, the initial ranks when the CSV drops, the it's gonna be as sharp as possible. Corum not a pass catcher either, but he can steal some of the red zone. Not the biggest dude, but they just seem to like this prototype of player, and they basically went with someone that's very much like Kyron. So, it was an interesting selection for the Rams. And then we get Roman Wilson, my boy, my boy. Let's pull up, oh god, this is too much fun. The rookies and sophomores, we may have taken a stand. He was going undrafted to start. We may have taken a stand on Roman Wilson. We lucked into a lot of AD with A-Rich too. So we lucked into that. We're not celebrating that one. Lad at 40%. Odunze, obviously this one's a big fat L. We accept them. We accept the L's as they come as well. Chase Brown, I think, got a little bit more certainty in the backfield today, and I want Chase Brown in best ball tournaments over Zach Moss. This was fun though. My God, some of these teams in rookies and sophomores just look so good. So good. And I drafted for the first 2 days. I told all the pounders, "Do not draft rookies and sophomores when the ADPs get updated and the QBs are no longer cheap, because you're not gonna get A-Rich at 7 on day 2." So I try to tell the people. But, yeah, we were on Roman Wilson. This is where I say we were a little lucky being an ADP stan to some extent in rookies and sophomores. This is where I got a lot of my Keon Coleman. So, I was happy about that, but some of these teams are so much fun. Congrats to Nick. The Cardinals had so many picks in this draft, and they really didn't add anyone of substance to challenge Michael Wilson as the 3rd favorite target on the team behind Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride. But, yeah, we made a stand on Roman Wilson. He has a really good opportunity to establish as the wide receiver 2 on that team. RIP. The double stack in Miami. Maybe that's the new Miami double stack that you need. Achane and Wright. Achane likely falls a few spots. He is the type of player that gets there on limited carries, though. So maybe instead of him reaching potentially 15 touches next year, maybe he's back to that 12, 13 range with the addition of Jalen Wright, who's going to work himself into the game. They also I don't blame them. They wanna keep these guys healthy, and they ran the ball a lot last year. So, I'm cool with them bringing in, Jalen Wright. It's a team that wants to build on speed and play fast and make their defenders try to protect it. Marshawn Lloyd to Green Bay. I have this weird feeling that everyone is gonna be doing the old Aaron Jones chant. Free Aaron Jones, it's gonna be free Josh Jacobs. I feel like they wanna run the ball. They wanna keep their main guy healthy for playoffs. The coach said it himself. Um, so there is gonna be a change of pace back in there. Lloyd, a lot more fun of a click than AJ Dillon. Oh god, a lot more of a click. And pick 88 on a running back. So it not the best spot for Marshawn Lloyd. That is the narrative for all these rookie running backs. The landing spots were so lackluster. I sent out a tweet, wish list. Didn't get any of them. It wasn't even a crazy wish list. I wanted Jalen Wright to Las Vegas. You could still have Zamir White be the power back. That's fine, but get Jalen Wright in there on 3rd down. Makes sense. Nope. Ray Davis to the Chargers. He goes to Buffalo. He goes to Buffalo. Uh, it's pretty damn good. It's pretty damn good. Audric Estime to Buffalo I wanted. So that one's fine. We'll give that one. And then Will Shipley to Dallas. Will Shipley to Dallas I thought would have been fun. He's got some nice wiggle in his game. Uh, Luke McCaffrey to Washington. I think this was a surprise. And I don't know. He feels more like a floor click to me for best ball. Um, I'm not gonna love it, especially because you have Eckler in this backfield, and you think that he's going to be getting some of those short yard, receptions. It's gonna eat into a little bit of Luke McCaffrey's work there, and I just don't know how much work there is to be had there. Tavian Sanders, really good landing spot in Carolina. It's it's basically completely open there in Carolina to earn the starting job, and I thought this was a good spot for Denver to make a stand on Troy Franklin. It makes sense. This is going to make us. I think it takes a slight hit on the Marvin Mims shares. Not much because he's unknown, he's unproven. He fell. It's just one of those wait and see sort of things. So you're probably gonna be mixing in Troy Franklin, you're probably gonna be mixing in Mims, but it's it's Denver. So I did have a soft fade basically on every single Denver player except for McLaughlin, and we saw him basically get his value crushed today. Steph. Let me know. Are you okay with the McLaughlin shares? Are you okay with your McLaughlin shares? I know you're heavily invested, but it's a tough one. Theo Johnson to the Giants. I think this is kinda telling about Waller too, uh, going going tight end here at 107. I don't think we're gonna see Waller back. Then Javon Baker to the Pats. It's getting a little muddy here, and obviously, you're probably gonna see 2 QBs at some point this season, so adjusting to the 2 different quarterbacks. Oh, yeah. Bindle says, "I regrettably like Bo Nix now." He got the landing spot. Those 6 QBs in, what, the first 12 picks. Crazy. Okay. Steph's got a story in which it all works out for McLaughlin. I love this. Can't wait to read this one. Devontae Walker, great landing spot in Baltimore. Great landing spot. I moved Zay Flowers up because of Devontae Walker. I did have a soft fade on Zay because I figured they would add someone. I'm not as afraid that Devontae Walker really eats into his role. Now Mark Andrews coming back most certainly will, and most of my Zay shares are going to be with Lamar because I think those spike weeks are gonna be heavily tied to one another. Yeah, I agree here, Justin. Like Bo Nix, hate Denver skill positions. It's just it's very muddy. It's very muddy in Denver, all over the place, all over the place. Jalen Wright to Miami, we covered this one. It's not the best landing spot. God damn. And then you have Mostert taking red zone carries. Eh, better from dynasty standpoint? Like it's it's tough. This one sucks. This one sucks. Didn't want the Miami landing spot. AJ Barner to Seattle. Interesting for Fant, but Cade Stover, someone that Adam brought up pretty early on that he said he wasn't gonna test that well, and he didn't, but he goes to 123. I don't think it's too threatening to Schultz, but, it's a nice backup. Probably give Schultz some rest and still maybe not even lose too much at the tight end position after he gets some experience. I like Cade's profile a lot. Bucky Irving? Dude, this one made no sense to me. Like, you have Rashad White, who's a decent pass catcher. He's not efficient. The guy's not efficient. Tampa Bay's O-line was lackluster. Pass catcher, White did fine as a pass catcher, I thought. They bring in someone very similar. It was just this one was questionable. I thought, like, bringing someone like Braylon Allen, I don't know, someone that would be maybe more effective in the red zone, but, uh, Bucky Irving to the Bucks at 125. That one was a little bit of a head scratcher for me. Will Shipley to Philly. More exciting than Kenneth Gainwell. Definitely more exciting than Kenneth Gainwell. But Philly, after their first RB, like, they have their clear number 1 RB, and then I think it's a little more of an R running back by committee after that. So I do think, like, you'll see Will Shipley, you'll also see Kenneth Gainwell, sort of the way they use Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell behind Swift. So they do use 3 running backs. I don't like the landing spot for Will Shipley, even though it's a high-powered offense. RIP Bateman. It's definitely gonna be interesting with like, Bateman's still seeing the field, right? Like, Odell moving on, so it's still gonna be in 3 wide receiver sets, Bateman, Flowers, and Devontae. So, I don't think a whole lot changes here for Bateman unless Devontae Walker can come in and command some huge target share, which I don't really expect, but yeah, lower volume team in the throwing game, so I wanted like, low key, I wanted Malik Washington to end up in Baltimore. Very similar comp for me to Marquise Brown in size and playing style. Ray Davis to Buffalo. The Pounders are up big. On this one, the Pounders smashed. Thanks to Nick, mainly thanks to Nick. got us on Ray super early, watched the tape, pretty sure I was on the throne where I do my best work, and I was like, "I completely agree. I completely agree." He got steamed up in the big board to, like, 170, and then people kinda cooled off him. Well, back up above 170, my friend, way up. Buffalo landing spot behind Jared Cook. Good landing spot, really, really is. Cowing to San Fran. This one, after they go Pearsall, like, was it a little telling that they were still trying to trade Ayuk and Debo? Like, I'm not sure, but it seemed like more that they were planning for the future with that pick with Cowing. Into the 5th round. Anthony Gold, like, I don't not where I would have went, but, yeah, Josh Downs, definitely less threatening than some of the guys that were available on the board, in my opinion, for Josh Downs and AD even, so but bringing in depth here with that click, I guess. Estime to Denver. Have a good night, Steph. Thanks for jumping in. Have to cope somehow. Yeah, they're gonna cut P. Ryan. That I think that's pretty clear with this, bringing in Audric Estime, having McLaughlin, and then obviously Javonte, so three-headed backfield in Denver, to me, screams, "I want none of it." That's what it screams to me. I'm okay with little to 0 of the three-headed backfield in Denver that's not gonna be putting up crazy points. Anais Smith, this was a sleeper. This was one of our sleepers, and he gets the Philly landing spot. It's not bad. Not a team that throws the ball a ton, but we could see some changes this season. It's a team that needed a wide receiver 3, but they do add another rookie behind Smith later on in the draft. Jamari Thrash, speedster. Good weapon for Deshaun Watson in the speed department, being able to open up this field. Elijah Moore, maybe it hurts a little bit potentially towards the end of the season, but, yeah, I'm not too you could be mixing in Thrash with your Deshaun Watson shares. I don't think that's gonna be that crazy of a click in the 18th round. Running back, this is good for Derrick Henry, in my opinion. It's not as good for, uh, the number 2 there. Why am I blanking? Keaton Mitchell. Not as good for him. Not as good for him. Running back, like, oh my god. Singletary? Another draft day winner? Crazy. Crazy. I think Bigsby's got a little bit of competition now for the RB2 spot there. Memes. Now, I was waiting to see if A.T. Perry was gonna be a major draft day winner. Bub Means is like a big slot, but he also had some highlights going deep as well. There is gonna be competition for A.T. Perry with them moving on from Michael Thomas. So, something to track. Definitely something to track throughout the offseason. Isaiah Davis. Dude, the Jets just, like, kept drafting running backs too. I wasn't overly high, like, you guys can go check the tape. He's like I don't know. I wasn't overly high on his tape, and I like to stick to my takes. And, yeah, Izzy, it's not looking great for Izzy, let's put it that way. Brees Brees is fine. That dude's not still freaking Brees. Vidal, what a spot. Frank, 24%. Vidal, the rushing leader in college last year, but he played for Troy. That's like you gotta preface it with that almost. Uh, Great landing spot. They have Dust in the running back position with Dobbins coming back from a major injury. You have Gus Edwards there who is good at pounding the rock, and he's good for that, like, 12 touches a game. His ceiling, in my opinion, is like 56 yards, 67 ceiling. Okay, ceiling. 68 yards and 2 tutties, like, somewhere in that, like, 18-point range, but that's, like it's gonna happen once next season. He's mainly gonna be in that 56 yards, 65-yard range. Some games he'll have a tutty. So Vidal, I do like the landing spot a lot, and, if he's not in the top 18 rounds, he very quickly will be. So, someone that I'm probably gonna be targeting in the 18th round very early into this contest, whatever one drops. And if one does drop while I'm live, let me know, 'cause we'll jump in. If you guys just joined me, go down, slap the like on the live stream. If you enjoying the content, please hit the sub. It helps us tremendously continue to make content and doing what we like. Johnny Wilson to Philly. So they bring in couple receivers here to battle for the wide receiver 3 position. I think it's a smart idea. Um, so Johnny Wilson, I know a lot of people liked his profile. I did too. I believe I was over 8% on Wilson. And yeah, it's good landing spot, high powered offense. They should continue to try to make playoff runs. I know it was a disappointing season for Philly fans, but you got the quarterback figured out. That's arguably the most important part. Jace, running back, and wide receiver. Interesting picks from Atlanta. My god. Anyone an Atlanta fan in the live stream? How do I feel about Shipley and Barkley? They I think Shipley and Kenneth Gainwell are gonna kinda eat each other's lunch for workloads. Houston running back. I have to look into this guy, but Damian like, was anyone really clicking Damian Pierce at the end? I know he was being drafted in almost every single draft, and I mean, the click isn't looking that bad. They add a 6th round pick, like, end of the 6th, so Dameon Pierce, I mean, I don't know what his upside is, especially with having Mixon there. They add a 6th round guy, I don't think that's too big of a deal for Dameon. Dylan Labe to the Raiders. He actually gets a good landing spot. He actually gets the meme. He was the meme. He gets a good landing spot in Las Vegas. Uh, and do his thing, probably gonna catch, like, 40 plus balls this year, sorta be a makeshift Antonio Gibson type where he gets there by catching, 40 to 40 plus balls, I'll say. I would put it around the 40 range, like, there's a lot of work to be had in the 3rd down area in Las Vegas, but I think Antonio Gibson may be a little more versatile with being able to handle some of the carries. LA adds a wide receiver to Dallas must have been really high on this guy. To wait this long to add a skill position player on offense, they must have been so okay rolling into the season with Brandon Cooks. So, I guess I'm just gonna have to move up Brandon Cooks and Fergie Ferg. It's just what we're gonna have to do. It's Brendan Rice, he gets a good landing spot. He's one of the rookies that I faded just strictly based off tape, and he ends up in the 7th round, he gets drafted, he goes to the Chargers. Dude, can this kid be starting over, like, Quentin Johnson by the end of the season? Oh, dear. Oh, dear. I'm not overly high on Brendan Rice, but, I'm sure you guys will see him drafted in BBM5, mixed in here and there. Jaheim Bell, I think we have a few Bell pairs, but, mainly sticking to the top 2 rookies, top 2, top 3. Bell to the Pats, I think it's good for Hunter Henry, in my opinion. I think Hunter Henry's fine in his role in New England. I don't think it's threatened too much. Taj Washington to join Malik Washington. They got the Washington boys going to Miami. to battle out for wide receiver 3, or maybe they'll both end up being mixed in. We saw Waddle and Hill leave the game several times, almost every single game. Update on your phone. Jalen Waddle in the medical tent. Damn it. Put your phone down. Update. Jalen Waddle back on the field. Nice. Update. Tyreek Hill heading to the medical tent, holding hammy. You're like, dude, we can't catch a break. So maybe these guys find work through injuries as well as, someone's going to establish as a wide receiver 3. Shout out to Holy Cross, Worcester, Massachusetts. Awesome. Love to see that. Cornelius Johnson, wide receiver, another one to the Chargers. So they're adding depth, trying to get some sort of competition going at the wide receiver position. But Lad McConkey, the guy that they invested a second round pick 34 overall in, he's going to be the guy that I'm going to be focusing the most. The most. QJ will correct the drops this year. That is fixable. It's a problem with the way he tries to catch the ball. It's like I think it's more not fundamentals, maybe fundamentals of how to catch the football and how he tends to uh, be a body catcher. It's true. 24% Pearsall Ford. Congratulations, man. You got to be feeling really, really good about it. I know my exposures are, oh, what is this? Rookies and sophomores? I was just so confused. Back. So I'm very happy. Even in like my biggest board squads, we'll pull up the biggest board squads. I'm very happy with how it ended out. We got Austin Eckler at 112, which is where I think he belongs. So getting him there to fall there and selecting him there kind of felt good because I had very, 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 very little Austin Eckler. Can't play with Ray Davis. Like this is a fun squad already. Garrett Wilson, Waddle, Chris Godwin, AD, he's gonna fall. Mike Williams, Roman Wilson to Pittsburgh, Burton to Cincy, Rashad Bateman, Nia Smith to Philly, and then Parker Washington, which that click I was mixing him in the end in the last pick, but it's likely it's likely blah at this point. You're not gonna be clicking him in 18 round drafts. 20 round drafts, it's whatever. Mark Andrews, Hawkinson at 153, and then Gesicki. I did like bringing in a third tight end on teams that have Hawkinson, and we didn't have to invest too much in him. That, uh, yeah, made sense to me to bring in Gesicki here, and Jonnu Smith was off the board, so we reached on our guy. Leggett is the highest owned player, 29.5%. I hope it works out for you. I hope it works out for you. I wasn't overly high on Leggett after finding out he was 6'1". However, he does have some of the tools to be a successful receiver. Can he do it in Carolina? That we have to see. That we have to see. This one, Kirk Cousins with Jackson, with Bijan, Aaron Jones, Mostert, Jalen Wright, Rip, Aaron AJ Dillon, Rip. Maybe Zeke to Dallas though to solidify the room a little bit with these three. I think that'll be fine. O'Dunes, Rip, Lad McConkey hit, Pearsall hit, Washington. I like Miami as a landing spot, so I'm good with that. Mooney at 148, Christian Watson, DK Adams, Pitts, Jonnu, and Sanders. I'm cool with that. Sanders to Carolina. Jonnu is a sneaky winner today, in my opinion. Jonnu, Gesicki, some of these late tight ends. Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, and JJ McCarthy. I think this was just like an advance rate click, random. I don't think this is correlated. Achane, Brian Robinson, Chuba, Jonathan Brooks. Did I skip? We must have skipped Jonathan Brooks at some point. Good landing spot for Brooks. Like Chuba was not efficient last year. He did a lot better though than Miles Sanders, so it felt like he did good, but he just did better than Miles Sanders, who did terrible. So it's not overly surprising that they bring in a running back. I did lean into the fact that maybe Dallas, maybe another team will scoop Jonathan Brooks, and I'm not too afraid of a lot of other running backs, and I'm not as afraid of Carolina investing an early pick because they needed help in so many positions. However, they chose to go the running back route, and the Chuba shares are going to fall. They're going to fall, what, 40 picks? Maybe to the Kendre range at 160. It's not killer, but it's definitely not the certainty that you thought you had. And then those Miles Sanders shares, those might be RIP. Charbonnet 143, Tyler Algier, who I felt was one of the safest clicks in this year's draft for these handcuff running backs. They don't add to the group. Feels really good. And then Shipley to Philly, and we'll just sort of see. Lamb, Diggs, Kirk, Sutton, Gabe Davis, Roman Wilson, Burton. We had Dortch with McBride, Jonnu, and Gesicki. Really strong at tight end, in my opinion. Nice landing spots. Double in Jacksonville. Oh, no Trevor Lawrence. Interesting. Trey McBride and Dortch with Kyler. Dak with Lamb. It's fun. I'm cool with this team too, especially for when it was drafted. I don't think we have too many misses in here. Obviously, Chuba gets hit a little bit. Achane gets hit a little bit. We did get him at 23 though, so that feels a little better. But a lot of these middle round running backs too, like if we go to my big board exposures, this hurts. Like Brandon Cooks, I for sure thought they were bringing in a receiver. I'm going to be targeting him, especially for my portfolio early. But James Cook, 4%. Uh, Rashad White, 3%. Now, I wish I had more Pacheco, but I do have out of the 3 of them going in that middle range, I'd put them sort of in the same tiers, even though they were probably 15 picks apart. He's he's a pretty big winner from today and from the whole weekend, I should say. And not only that, but he's good leverage off of one of the top QBs that you could be facing, in a week 17 single game slate matchup. So Pacheco, he's gonna rise. He won't go crazy though. I think he's gonna be one of my favorite sneaky clicks in those middle rounds at running back though. QBs, I was very high on T-Law. He kept falling. He kept falling, and they were gonna add a receiver in the draft. When were they gonna do it? That was a big question. They ended up with Brian Thomas Jr. Very happy with that. I've never had this much of a QB in a tournament style, and I've been playing on Underdog. This will be my 4th year. I've never had this much of a QB in my tournament exposures. It's usually like 16% max on my top guy. We hit 24%. So we have a big bet on T-Law this year so far for the pre-draft process. And then we're balanced because we're very much into just correlating different teams, getting different exposures, and yeah, basically making the teams off of that and then where the value is. Lamar, my second highest. Dak doesn't get any help. I think it's okay. He balled out last year. Um, he balled out ADP of 81. This looks like where he ended off. Kyler, Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, draft day winner. Derek Carr, draft winner. Uh, Minshew, draft winner. Who else back there? Geno Smith. These guys could be very good values. Now, Minshew out of the group, his backup that's there didn't play that bad. Aiden O'Connell, he didn't do that bad when he was in. So maybe he has the highest risk to lose his job if he doesn't perform, which is kind of likely. But the other guys I'm pretty comfortable with between Daniel Jones, Geno. Where is my Geno Expo at? 9.3. So we're just over. Tua, Caleb, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. And I want this to be higher. The injury does freak me out a little bit, but if you're gonna make a bet on the pass catchers, you better be correlating it or at least be above field. Running backs, Tyler Algier, number 1. Gibson, we were drafting him before the New England landing spot, just figuring he'd find a role as a third down back. He's not gonna have the highest ceiling, but I think he's serviceable on teams that maybe you went 0 RB, and maybe you need someone to give you 3.5 catches a game to get you those 6 points to keep you alive some weeks. But, yeah, contingent upside with injuries, obviously, to Ramondre Stevenson, who suffered a injury last season. So you have that as well, and at the price when he was going at, like, 212, yeah, that was cool. Kendra, 26% again, we're making the bet that Kamara loses a step or Miller maybe enters the season a little more healthy and maybe a little more efficient than Kamara on the ground. McCaffrey, welcome to the live stream. Artie, welcome to the live stream. Obviously, depending on other factors, but what percent of your BBM 5 portfolio do you think will be 3 teams and what will be 2% or 2 QBs? Uh, that's tough to say. That's tough to say. In 18 round drafts, it is very easy to overspend at QB. It is very easy to overspend at QB. So finding that combination of quarterbacks that you like to stop at 2, and then just kind of presetting that going into the draft room, knowing when that teardrop sort of requires you to go 3 versus 2. I think having that sort of already determined in your head and worked out will give you an advantage over other drafters. It'll make you just more prepared entering the draft room with the strategy of when do I stay at 2 or when do I go to 3? I think that's important. But, eh, yeah, I like both builds. I don't think you're gonna see the same amount of injuries to the quarterback position this year. That if we're drafting based off of last year's results, and a lot of teams do, like, when the big board opened, you had to grab quarterbacks. When it opened 2 weeks before Super Bowl, teams were going 4, 5 QBs, and they weren't auto drafters. They just were, like, so tied to what happened last season versus leaning into maybe, you know, where would I start? And it would probably be as my 2nd quarterback. I'm cool with, like, Caleb and then anyone above Caleb. Maybe in that range. Maybe you can push that to Goff, but and then what's the price of the quarterbacks going late too? Like, can you get Bryce Young in the last round? Can you get Will Levis in the last round? Going to 18 round drafts. But yeah, it is I think it is a big edge in doing your research personally, and then depending on at the end of drafts, who can add to my team? Who can add to the correlation? Who can add to the plus EV for advance rates? Is it a quarterback? Is it better spent at running back? Is it better spent at tight end, receiver, based on where your team is and how much draft capital you've spent? It's just different every draft, so it's very hard to say an exact number of what I will end up with both because I let the drafts come to me, and every single time it's different. 20 rounds for BBM would be sick. I agree, Artie. I agree. Although I know my wife will appreciate the streams being 5 minutes shorter on a single draft and 10 minutes shorter on a double draft. Let's put it that way. Running backs, Rashawn, man, and Khalil Herbert. For me, I thought that this was a backfield that they weren't gonna add to, and leaning into that where there is so much uncertainty before the draft and before everything, um, we take an L there, and that's cool. It is what it is. James Conner, I'm not overly worried about. Chuba, this hurts. Tank Bigsby, we'll see. AJ Dillon, this hurts. Chase Brown, Chris Rod, this was a last round click. Marshawn Lloyd doesn't get the best spot, but he should see some change of pace work. Carolina, a lot of these late round guys are just dead, and that's okay. It's sort of expected. Bijan, we were very heavy on. 10.7. He ranked, I believe, 3rd in my first round exposures. And then receiver. I mean, Very happy with the rookies and where they landed, very unhappy with the rookie running backs and where they landed. I think a lot of people are feeling that way right now. Garrett Wilson, my number 1 exposed receiver, going him over Kyron every time, especially early when Kyron was going in the first round. We ended up with 6%. Gibbs, we had a small fade on. Interesting to just look at this stuff. Now you have to readjust the whole portfolio. Evan Ingram, highest owned tight end. Kmet is man, you add Odunze too, like, he has to fall. He has to fall, like, I probably like Pat Fry pretty like, maybe even just above Cole Kmet where he was going. He's gonna be very touchdown dependent in my opinion. Like, dude, you got DJ Moore, you got Keenan Allen, you got Rome Odunze pulling targets. Why do you have to pass the ball to Cole Kmet? Let's go. Congrats, Artie, having the first kiddo. Due in September. Congratulations. That's amazing. That is amazing. It's a ride, and it's a fun ride. It's all worth it. Bowers at 15. The landing spot's not great. He probably falls behind Ferguson now, in my opinion, especially after Dallas adds no one for competition. So he falls behind Ferguson. I still like him. He's still gonna pull targets, but Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, there's a lot of mouths to feed there. Pitts, we were on. Man, he's going at pick 100 at some point, guys. Kyle Pitts was going at pick 100. So we were on him early. Travis Smith, he wasn't getting drafted besides maybe a few people mixing him in here and there, maybe 2%, 1% of drafts early on. Then he gets the Miami landing spot, and I quickly got to 8%, and I quickly rose myself above that. Njoku, Fant, Schultz, McBride, we were high on. But the way we drafted and the way we utilized the rookie wide receiver, I think there's just a lot that I mean, obviously, I'm not trying to celebrate. I'm not taking any victory laps until you win the contest or until your advance rates are very good, like, anything can happen in between, but I was happy with hitting on some of these rookies as late as we did, as early as we were on them. Jalen Wright with 3 of the first 4 drafts, not as sexy now, but even though we got him in the 200s. Maximum pain. This one, we end up with the Chicago triple stack, which is pretty crazy. Actually, we got the quad. Um, yeah, just every now and then there's a team like this where I like 1 out of, like, 50. So maybe 3 out of the 150 that I don't have at least 2 rookie receivers that I like on the team. Neighbors in the comp. I mean, this one, I like Roman spot. I like Malik at 213. The receivers the receivers were smashes, and I think it's something that we can learn for next year is really leaning into the uncertainty for these rookie wide receivers, especially at the end of the draft. Vidal was a smash at running back, but some of the landing it's very landing spot dependent for some of these rookies. It is, and we get there a lot with the rookie wide receivers. You don't get the same luck for the running backs, but so is life, and a lot's gonna change in the preseason, a lot's gonna change in training camp. We're gonna see who's establishing themselves as the 2nd favorite running back versus the 3rd, and there's gonna be injuries as well, so I know we have people that feel differently about, when should I draft the majority of my teams, and what I like to do personally is I like to spread it out, not just because I stream these, but because I wanna get different players at different ADPs and try to beat the market in multiple different time slots. Early on, I probably wanna do 15 drafts in the 1st week, so that's 10%. Not drafting when you have no updates. When there's no updates, and I understand, like, sometimes you're not happy with where your exposures are, maybe you tried getting a guy and you just couldn't get him, so you're trying to get your exposure up on that one player. But as you do that, and as you keep failing potentially, uh, you're wasting you're wasting some of the EV in my opinion, because you can draft around news and not everyone's on top of it. You can get different players at different ADPs later in the draft and leverage the early drafters, maybe due to injuries, maybe due to uncertainty with some of those teams. As you can see, even in the big board, there's more uncertainty early in the big board than there is later in the big board. So you should be able to create better correlated teams because we know who the keys are. Like even like Minshew going to Vegas, like there weren't a lot of Minshews being drafted early in the big board. So there are different ways to correlate and find uh, different advantages later in the draft season. So really spreading it out and targeting those guys you think are going to rise. Set an ADP that you think they're going to rise to. Don't go crazy and reach over where you think they're worth. In my opinion, I think that's not the smartest. Dude, Peg, this is crazy. I don't even know if YouTube would let me read that out loud, but it says, "I miss you and your girth." Crazy, crazy comment. Love you, Peg. We gotta get you back on for, the start of the BBMs. Surprise guest. Yeah, that just about does it. Tomorrow, I'm gonna be working on the CSV all day. Nick's gonna check it over with me on Monday. We're gonna clean that up, and the Macs are on YouTube if you wanna get on that. Link is in the description, links in the chat, or any tier of the Patreon will get you the CSV, the draft guide, my exposures, basically weekly or bi-weekly, depending if I don't do a lot of drafts that week, it'll be bi-weekly, so it actually changes. And yeah, draft guide, everything. The channel that you can jump in the drafts with me, I let you know when I'm jumping in, the whole 9. So, appreciate you guys coming out watching this tonight. I'm very excited for the start of BBM. If you guys enjoyed tonight's live stream, slap the like on the way out. Hit the sub. I appreciate you. Catch you on the next one. Pounders.